and welcome to Europ's video on how to prepare a poster presentation for this year's symposium. My name's Jerry McMillan, I'm a Europ advisor, and this is one of a series of videos we've created for all the different types of presentations related to this year's symposium. Just as a note, as we're going through the video, we're giving an overview of a lot of things, but not necessarily providing all the details you'll need for the symposium. The details are in the Student Presenter Guide. That is the source for all the information you need for the symposium. Refer to it often, refer to it early, refer to it always. And then use these videos to enhance your understanding of what's in the guide. But if you have questions, go to the guide. It'll probably answer what you want to know. So let's start by asking a simple question. What's a poster presentation? A poster presentation is two elements. It's your pitch plus the poster. And I'll talk about both of those in a moment, but the important thing to think about is neither of these is a complete presentation. It's the two elements that go together that make the presentation. And with that in mind, I'm going to go the alternate order and start by asking this. What's a poster? A poster is a summary of your project. As I mentioned, it is not a complete presentation on its own. What's on the poster is enhanced and explained by your pitch. You provide what isn't on the poster. But let's think about what actually does go with the poster. First of all, the first job of a poster is to catch somebody's eyes. We have 3 poster sessions at the symposium. Each is 75 minutes long. At each of these sessions, there will be several hundred posters, several hundred projects being presented. People are free to walk down the aisles past all of these posters. Why do they want to stop at yours? The first thing you want your poster to do is reach out and tell somebody walking by, hey, look at me. Come talk to me about my project. So make sure your poster in some fashion inspires people to want to know more. Make sure everything on your poster is clearly organized and focused. We'll talk about this more as we go along, but remember, a poster is basically a 3-foot by 4-foot hunk of styrofoam or paper. It's very limited in what's on there, but it's important as you're creating what's on there to make sure it's easy to follow. Consider that most English readers are going to read top to bottom, left to right. Do you want to organize your poster that way? It's a clear, obvious organization. But make sure it's easy to understand. And make sure that the poster is complete. Everything on it is complete and self-contained, but also promising more. Again, on that 3-foot by 4-foot space, you're not going to put an entire project. But is what's up there done in a way that it makes sense? Can I look at your poster and at least have a general idea of what your project is about? Can I look at your poster if you're not there and get a clue? And then learn more from you. Whatever holes you open on a poster, make sure you fill them before you finish. And again, this is the constant reminder with poster design. There's limited space. And because space is so limited, I try to avoid answering the question of what should I put on my poster? and start by focusing on answering, what do you leave off your poster? And as I go through this slide, first, a caveat. I have some suggestions on which I feel very strongly on things to leave off your poster. I will explain why I make those suggestions. And it's important to remember that there may be disagreement with these suggestions. So the first thing in terms of what to leave off your poster is ask your faculty mentor, because they may have very strong opinions on what needs to be on your poster. And if it comes down to what I say versus what they say, by definition, they are right. Because you have to deal with them again. Even if you agree with what I'm saying, ask them, go with what they say. And with that in mind, the first thing I suggest leaving off your poster is your abstract. Think about this. What is an abstract? An abstract is a text-heavy summary of your project. What is a poster? A poster is a summary of your project, and to me, putting a summary of your project on a summary of your project, when this summary you're putting on is so text-heavy that almost nobody is going to read it, that doesn't make any sense to me. So if you can, leave off your abstract. With that said, your mentor, other programs you're involved with, may require you to include it. If you're using your poster for multiple symposiums, like if you're designing your poster for excellence in research, they require an abstract. I don't understand why. Ask them. But if you're using a poster for them and also for us, you have to do the abstract. But my strong recommendation is leave it off. The next thing I suggest leaving off your poster is detailed methods. And there's a big reason for that. Think about most research projects. The methods tend to be very detailed, very specific, and with many steps. They're hard to distill down to a few sentences or a few bullet points. For me, leaving the methods off the poster gives your audience, the people you're talking to, an opportunity to ask you about your methods. Focus on the other things, and if they want to know how you did your project, they'll ask. Again, you're half of this project. You can provide the details that won't fit on the poster. So I strongly recommend at least minimize and maybe leave off the methods. And then the third thing I suggest leaving off your poster is citations. And it is absolutely critical to recognize and to acknowledge work that you have built upon in doing your project. And yet, there is no legal requirement to do citations on a poster in the way that it's required to be in a published paper. You'll see a lot of posters that have references shunted off to the very bottom right of the poster, usually in a much smaller typeface than anything else. And the reason it's done that way is nobody's going to read them. People put the references, the citations on the poster because they think they have to. And again, it's important to recognize the work that's come before your project. But there are other ways to do it than taking up valuable space. First of all, you can just tell people. Again, you're half the presentation. Be prepared to talk about your references. I've also seen people print out lists of their citations, tape an envelope to their poster, put the papers in the envelope. If people ask about the citations, you pull it out, hand it to them. It's another way of providing the information that only a few people are going to ask for without taking up valuable poster space. So as you're designing your poster, start by asking yourself, what should you leave off? And then think about some other things. First of all, what's the goal of your poster? What's the single goal that you are trying to fulfill on your poster? You're not going to describe your entire project. There's not space. What's your goal? And then as you are designing the poster, make sure everything contributes to that goal. Do not add distractions or gratuitous information that does not get you to that point. Keep a very tight focus throughout your poster design. Use colors and fonts very deliberately. It's nice to have little contrasts, but you don't want to overwhelm people with big differences, with lots of fonts, lots of colors. You don't want to scare people by just how much stuff they have to wade through. Also, as a common note, the most common form of color blindness in humans is red-green. So if you're thinking of using two colors to put distinctions between things, don't use that as your contrast. Use colors and fonts mindfully. Use them to provide information, but don't just use a bunch because you think it looks fun. Also, as you're designing the poster, think about your headings. Think about how can they contribute not only by what they say, but by what information they provide. First of all, numbering headings clarifies your organization. Mentioned earlier, people are going to read top to bottom, left to right. Providing numbers makes it really clear where they should go next. But also think, as you're designing your headings, about providing real information in your headings. You will see a lot of posters at the symposium with a heading that says results. Pretty much everybody presenting at symposium is going to have results. When I'm walking up to your poster, I expect you to have results. You don't need a heading to say that. Rather, instead of saying results, how about a heading that says, we found this? Now you've done two things. You've provided information in a very big, readable form. And you've also provided information that you no longer have to put somewhere else. So you've saved space. So use your headings on the poster to provide information, both for navigation and for information about your project. And then add graphics that illustrate and enhance what you're talking about and what the poster talks about. Remember the old adage, a picture is worth 1,000 words. You don't have room on your poster for 1,000 words. What do you want to communicate that you can't say in simple language? Put visual elements to provide that information. But also label the graphics clearly. Make it clear so somebody who's looking at it can understand what they're looking at. If you have a picture and there's a specific area you want people to focus on, use arrows to call out that information. If you're using graphs, put only the information that's important. Only label the axes that provide something related to the data you're showing. Avoid things like 3D effects or shaded graphs. Make them easy and clear to read. And also think, as you are putting these graphic elements onto your poster, think about why would you consider numbering your illustrations? A lot of people number their figures, and I would ask why. If you're doing a research paper, you want to refer to figure 18 on page 27. But on a poster, everything is right in front of you. The illustrations are within the text that refer to them. So rather than numbering your illustrations, just refer to them in the text. Make it clear what text they refer to. Then again, you've provided fewer things that don't matter to the reader, and you've saved more space. And always, as you're designing the poster, focus on what's important. So the poster is half of your poster presentation. The other half is a pitch. And a pitch is a short, maybe 3-minute overview that introduces your project referring to the poster. Like the poster, the pitch is not a complete presentation. The pitch enhances the poster illustrates what you say in the pitch. The pitch builds upon the poster you're standing next to. And it clarifies and enhances the information on your poster. As I mentioned earlier, maybe the methods on your poster are limited or not there. Your pitch can include some information about the methods. The pitch is your opportunity to say things that they can't read. Another important element of the pitch is you want to inspire your audience to ask you questions. We've already talked about a poster can't include an entire project. A poster and a pitch cannot include an entire project. Leave your audience, leave the people you're talking to wanting more. You want them to ask questions. You want them to interact with you. You want them to be so interested in your presentation that they want to know more. Also, just as a note, more information in the guide. As you're doing the poster, remember, you have the opportunity for your poster to be judged. There's another video talking about the audition video that you would submit as part of the initial application if you want your poster to be judged for a Chancellor's Award. If your poster is being judged, read the rubric, read the score sheet that we give to the judges. There's a link to that in the guide. That'll give you an idea of what to include as part of your pitch. If you're not being judged, review that as well. It'll give you some ideas on how to focus your pitch. Remember, the pitch, what we are judging, is less your research than your presentation and how your pitch interacts with the poster. So again, your pitch, your poster is an opportunity to interact with people who are interested in your project. They may be experts in your project, they may not. Adapt what you're saying to what they know and to what they ask you. Also remember, as you're preparing your pitch, this is what we're looking for in our symposium. Other symposia may have different requirements. For example, if you're doing a poster for Excellence in Research, they want a complete research presentation along with your poster. That is not what we're looking for. We are looking for a short overview that connects to your poster. We are not looking for a complete overview, a complete detailed overview of your project. If you want to give that sort of presentation, maybe you should consider doing an in-person presentation. That gives you 7 minutes to talk about your project. You can include many more details in that. For our symposium, for our poster presentation, we want the overview. We want a focused, inspiring, informative overview of your presentation that leaves us wanting to know more. And with that, thank you for watching this video on preparing a symposium poster. As I mentioned earlier, this is one of a series of videos we've created referring to all types of presentations that will be involved in the symposium. And always remember that the Student Presenter Guide is the ultimate source for all information symposium related. Refer to it early, refer to it often, go back to it always. Read the guide. Thank you for watching, and we look forward to seeing your presentation at the symposium.